Welcome, and thank you for taking the time to join us today for this webinar focused on how to find grants, real-time search and tips and tricks. We all need that, right? For those of you that don't know me, I am Drew Palmer, Grants Integration Manager for Governor Gordon. The Grants Management Office is housed in the State Budget Department, where I work very closely with our team. So let me introduce a few of our key team members that are here with us today. Christine Immiger, who is our grants administrator for the Grants Management Office and also a senior budget analyst. Diana Cabriales, who is our deputy administrator for the Grants Management Office and also a senior budget analyst. And with our Haggerty consulting team, we have Val Craven, grant advisor, who will be presenting today. Harrison Newton, also a grant advisor, who will be presenting today, and a whole host of other team members behind the scenes. But I would like to recognize our Haggerty team leader, Rachel Nodblock, and also Abby Trimmel, who is joining us behind the scenes. We appreciate all of you in our partnership. Before we get started, let's review a few housekeeping items. This presentation will be recorded and will be posted on our website. Please keep your devices muted unless you are speaking. There will be time at the end of the presentation for questions, and you are all welcome to put your questions in the Q&A box below. You may raise your hand and we will call on you. Please enter your name, title, and the organization or local government you represent in the chat. We would appreciate it. So if you are joining for the first time, let me take a moment to provide some information regarding the services that the Grants Management Office offers. And Christine will get in a little more detail when I hand it over to her. Governor Gordon launched the Grants Management Initiative in July of 2024. He recognized that Wyoming historically has ranked very low in receiving federal funds back to the state, yet we certainly pay our fair share into the Treasury. The governor specifically realized that in pursuing federal funds, we needed more resources across the state. The Grants Management Office created WYGAP, the Wyoming Grant Assistance Program, which consists of coordination and technical assistance services, researching federal and state funding opportunities, grant writing, reviewing, the full grant life cycle assistance of monitoring, reporting, and auditing. We also provide training and support services. The one thing that we will not do for you, we will not tell you what to apply for. That's your decision. But all of these services are free of charge. These services are available to assist state agencies, local governments, tribal governments and organizations, nonprofits, and small businesses, with the intention of building capacity over time and providing additional resources to apply for federal and state grants. The overarching goal of this effort is to create a one-stop shop for resources related to federal and state grant opportunities and working to identify stacking and braiding options to maximize benefits to the state and local communities. It is the expectation that this effort will assist in laying the foundation for a viable solution in meeting the technical assistance and resource needs of our communities long term. So in this webinar, we will follow the methodology used by the Grants Management Office to conduct a grant opportunity scan, and I know there's a lot of interest out there in that. We will identify grant research buzzwords to use when conducting your research, and we will teach you how to apply strategies for conducting an opportunity scan and to identify potential funding opportunities and support a live grant search. So we have a lot to share with you. I'm now going to turn it over to Christine Immiger to kick us off. Christine.
Hey, thank you, Drew, and thank you for everyone who is attending today, and also for those that may not be able to attend at the time but are later listening to this. Thank you very much. We are very excited to be able to present this webinar today. This is a very highly requested topic. And we hope that these webinars and the trainings that we've been holding as part of the Wyoming Grant Assistance Program is helping reignite some of the excitement about jobs and the folks that are doing the jobs about the grants management lifecycle. Next slide, please. The Wyoming Grants Management Office, through our YGAP program, is simply here to serve the communities and organizations in Wyoming and help them identify certain available alternative funds to help support their priorities in their communities. Whenever they identify a possible funding source, we have the YGAP program in place to provide the technical assistance that is necessary for the entirety of the grants management life cycle. So from cradle to grave, from the time you receive that dollar in your bank account to the time that you have to go through a closeout and audit procedure. And through those two goals, we're really hoping to build the skills and knowledge and abilities throughout Wyoming communities so that they can repeat these efforts in their own local organizations, and they have a good and better understanding of how to move forward in the future and into this next era of federal financial assistance. Next slide, please. Part of the Wyoming Grant Assistance Program spans a couple different areas. Some of it is project planning and getting ready and doing the research for pursuing a grant. Some of it is also centered around the development and construction of eligible and competitive grant applications through some of our grant writing support. And then, as you know, and as we have said multiple times before, really pursuing the grant is only 20% of the effort. The real work comes in whenever you receive those dollars and you are required to perform post-award grants management. We have continued to release resources underneath of the Wyoming Grant Assistance Program. They are available on our website. Really, this program is simply here to serve those in the community that are doing these tireless jobs and pursuing funds to help support the growth of water, sewer infrastructure, transportation, health, and human services within their community. No question is off limits. We don't like saying no, but we simply want to help you find the best answer for you to move forward. This assistance is available at no cost to eligible entities in the state. So please remember that. And we greatly thank our governor and our legislature for helping us support the continuation of this office. If you would like to get in contact with us, you can email us at sbd-grants@wyo.gov, or we have a technical assistance form that you can fill out online. You can enter as little or as much information as you need, and we are there to assist and help you. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Haggerty Consulting to start our webinar today on how to search for federal grants.
Thanks, Christine. Hello, everyone. My colleague Harrison and I are excited for the opportunity to share the methods we use to find grants, including our own tips and tricks. The objectives of this webinar are to demonstrate how to follow the methodology used by the Wyoming Grants Management Office to conduct an opportunity scan. An opportunity scan is a term that we use to describe the research steps we take and ultimately the document that we create that captures the results of our grant research. This webinar will also demonstrate how to identify grant research buzzwords or keywords that you will use to enter into the grant search databases to identify appropriate funding opportunities. And finally, it'll demonstrate how to apply strategies for conducting an opportunity scan to identify potential funding opportunities. And you will watch me demonstrate a live grant search during this webinar also. Next slide. So the GMO's approach to grant research. To date, the GMO has performed grant research over 550 times. We have shared over 2,500 funding opportunities. The purpose of this webinar is to share our process for performing grant research, to provide you with the knowledge and tools you need to develop and implement your organization's grant research strategy. So what is this thing called grant research? Well, grant research is the process of systematically identifying and evaluating funding opportunities that align with your organization's mission, your project funding needs, and capacity. Grant research is an ongoing process. It's a key component of your funding pursuit activities. It is proactive, not a reactive activity. It's a process that occurs regularly, every week, every month, every quarter. It's an activity that develops into a grant calendar where you start to know and document the rhythm of your grantors' funding seasons. Next slide. As I hinted to in the previous slide, grant research ideally is proactive and not reactive. Why? Because there are definite advantages of approaching grant research proactively. First, if you know an opportunity is coming and you know as soon as it opens, you have time to write a better grant. You don't have to make any compromises because you're running out of time to produce the best grant application you can because you're in that time frame. It also allows for stronger project design. Again, you have the time to define the scope, outline the budget, build those partnerships, gather those letters of support and MOUs, memorandums of understandings that you need to develop a robust grant application. It also allows you to get to know your funders and their grant opportunities. And if you determine that the opportunity that you're interested in is something that is released on a cycle, say annually, you can start to look back at past versions of their notice of funding opportunities for that opportunity, and you'll get to know what that funder, what components they require most often in their grant application, maybe the certain parts of the narrative that they typically ask for, and you can even start to see funder priorities. So you can be prepared when that next cycle opens, you're ready to jump in and create your grant application. And finally, as you do this research regularly, you develop a pipeline or a calendar or a portfolio of funding opportunities. You might start to realize that, say, the U.S. Department of Justice tends to release funding that's of interest to you in August of every year. Or you might realize that the foundation that you typically request funding from, their application period opens every May. In particular, we can point out that the U.S. Department of Transportation's Safe Streets for All program is an annual program. It has been funded for the past number of years, and we expect that grant program to open up here in March. So that's one that if you're interested in, it's time you can start planning for that now. Next. So let's get familiar with the steps we use at the Grants Management Office to perform grant research. Step 1, we determine the research strategy. These are the questions we ask: how and when is it how to approach our grant research. Step 2 is we develop keywords or buzzwords. And again, you're going to have an opportunity to participate in identifying some keywords that I'm going to then use in my live grant research. Step 3 is to perform the grant research. Step 4 is to create that list or our opportunity scan I mentioned earlier. And step 5 is to take all those grant opportunities that you identify in your opportunity scan and decide which of them are best fit your organization and your funding needs. So step 1, determine research strategy. These are some of the questions we ask as we approach grant research to determine how and where to look for funding. So the first question, what is the status of your project? Is your project in the planning phase or the implementation phase? Is the road construction project, for example, that you're working on, is it shovel ready or are you still in the planning phase? And we ask because that can dictate what type of planning or type of funding you look to, planning or implementation funding sources. And the second question we'll ask is, what's the funding gap? Are we in need of $2,000, $200,000, $2 million? Because that, for example, is your food bank expansion project need a couple $1,000s because you need some equipment for the kitchen, or are you doing a complete reconstruction? So one may lend itself to funding from, say, a private funder or foundational funding, and the other one may lend itself to more like state or federal funding sources. And then another question we ask, is the effort of researching, pursuing, and administering the grant worth the amount of funds you'll receive? Because grants are not free money. They take a lot of time and energy to research, pursue, and in particular administer the grants. So if you look into that, you may have to determine whether or not you should scale to the appropriate funder. Again, maybe a foundation funding versus going after a federal funding source. Or you may have to think of a different funding mechanism altogether. Say if you're a nonprofit, maybe that gap could be covered with donations. So more along the lines of grant research strategy, it's important to know the nature of your funding need. As a grant recipient, your organization is acting as an arm of the funding agency. You're advancing their mission. So as you approach the process of starting to look for grant funding, ask yourself, Are we delivering a broad public benefit or internal need? That answer may determine how and if you pursue grant funding, as you may need to think more broadly on how your organization's needs advances the founder's mission. Or if you're unable to do so, maybe grant funding is not the best avenue at the time. And there may be something else that's a better fit. And with that, I'm going to pass to my colleague Harrison as he presents the next steps in our process.
Thanks, Val.
Mhm.
So this is terrifically important because the work that your communities perform is terrifically important. Your needs are important for the residents that are in your communities. And over the years that we've done work like this, we have conducted thousands of searches, grant searches, and opportunity searches under different administrations and different political environments. And we've seen clear patterns emerge in the organizations that are able to find opportunities that they're able to then target and win. And one of the most important practices we see among successful applicants is that they spend a lot of time and care in developing their search terms or keywords, as we like to call them, buzzwords. So buzzwords are the words that you're commonly using to describe the work that you're hoping to receive resources for. This step is more strategic than most people assume because it's not just typing in a few words into a database, but it's about translating your project into the language that funders use when they decide what it is they want to invest in. And so therein lies a disconnect. We describe our work in the words that make sense to us often, but we may sometimes forget to frame our needs in terms that a funder is going to understand and a funder has decided has a key importance for them to spend dollars and invest in. It can be steeped in policy language, it can be connected to outcome language, and it can be sector-specific terminology. And if we don't bridge that gap between how we talk about our work and how funders talk about what they want to invest in, we can miss opportunities. So step one is really thinking about how are we going to broaden the scope of our buzzwords. We want to look beyond the obvious, the flat description of what it is we want to do. If I want to build a community center, we type in community center. If we're refurbishing a parking lot, we type in repairs or renovation, asphalt repair. That's certainly where a search can begin, but it's not how funders usually are thinking about investment. Funders think more broadly about outcomes and public benefit. They're not just funding a building or a parking lot, they're investing in impact. So to broaden our buzzwords, we want to think about the activities that are associated with the project, all of those activities. And this is where it really helps to get a piece of paper out and a pen and actually sit down and think about this work that you're proposing needs to happen. And start with where you are now and really write down all of the things that need to happen for that work to occur, whether that's hiring a team to come in and do a quote on the problem that you're facing, or training someone to be able to be a part of the solution. If it's a plan or a planning step that needs to occur, really writing down all of the steps can be very powerful in identifying all of the activities that could be fundable. So if a community center needs repair or expansion, who are you hiring? What planning is required? What design or assessment may be necessary? And then think about outcomes. Once the project is complete, once it's all done and your project has been a great success, who is served? Who is helped? What population benefits? Even though that comes after your project is done, it can be key and important as search terms to decide and determine and to find which funders are interested in serving the same people you want to serve, because in that space, you're aligning with what they want to invest in. So those are important search terms too. The core takeaway here is don't just search for what the project is, search for what the project does and who it serves. Next slide. So another key element that we see among those who are successful in finding opportunities is searching for funding outside their sector. So in public service, certainly we all become attached to a particular sector or approach, whether that's health or education. If I'm in a local health department or I work at a community center, perhaps I'm looking at the Department of Health and Human Services for opportunities. And if I work at a school or a local school district, I may be looking to the Department of Education. But what we find is that there are a great number of opportunities that you can find that are connected to the work you do, but actually come from a different sector or a different interest area or focus area. So in exploring funding opportunities outside of your industry is very, very important. And it begins with asking yourself, who else may be invested in my work? If you're invested in health or you're working in health, there are a lot of different agencies and a lot of different sectors that have to think about health outcomes. Think about the corrections agencies or departments or institutions in your community. They have populations and they have to be concerned with their health. If you're in education, it may be possible that workforce development and small business is interested in how people are trained or educated. So there may be partnerships and opportunities in that direction. This is a process of understanding that there are other funders in other areas that really you have to take into account when you're thinking about who's going to fund my work. Next slide. So here's what thinking outside your sector can look like. A health center sought funding for facility improvements, a new roof, larger parking lot, new equipment, improved waiting areas. In partnering with Wyoming communities, we hear about needs just like that all the time. And so we want to think beyond those obvious words, hospital, roof, the actual literal words that we would want to use. And now we want to think maybe a little bit more broadly. What in service of what? What is our building in service of? What larger outcome does it achieve? And so in here we can find things like public health, emergency response, preparedness activities, community resilience, community preparedness, emergency response. If you have a healthcare center, that healthcare center may be able to help your community when a disaster hits or when there's an emergency need. COVID-19, those kinds of situations occur, and your community is made stronger when that community center is there. So there are many funders in the Department of Health and Human Services, but there's a whole nother bucket of funding that's attached to emergency and disaster. FEMA, HUD, EPA all fund opportunities for communities to think about how prepared they are for risks, how ready they are to help their populations after disaster, how often they're able to, in a preparedness moment, teach and instruct those people in their community and to have a center of operations to do that. So all of a sudden, there's a lot more involved than just a community center and healthcare. There's a lot involved that could open up the door to other funding. Next slide. So another piece that's very important is understanding who will benefit and really thinking deeply about this. And I really personally find lots of value in this. Funding is often geared toward a population or a locale. So think about healthcare. There are health disparities. We know that not every group experiences illness in the same degree, in the same manner. And so there are often opportunities that are tied to how populations need specific kinds of care, specific kinds of outreach or opportunities or health care. And so it very much matters if you're supporting a particular population. The locale also matters. Wyoming's rural. There are urban environments. There are definitely opportunities that are envisioned to be focused on rural organizations and localities. So it's very important to make sure that you remember where you are and what you're like. The government in particular thinks a lot about small communities because we know that smaller communities are very important, but also are going to have different kinds of challenges as related to maintenance and upkeep, and are going to have different kinds of approaches to gathering resources to do work. So many programs are designed to serve specific communities, and that can also help you generate those buzzwords. Applying the concept can look like this: a workforce development program serving teenage children in a rural area may decide to use terms that are like disadvantaged, underserved, opportunity youth, rural. Those are all things that could find different opportunities. Next slide. We also want to be aware of and use the funder's own language. In addition to the terms we would use, we want to make sure that we're just aware of how the funder is talking about needs like ours. So many funders use consistent language in their notice of opportunities, opportunities for funding. And they use those terms to describe the work that they want to see done in the way that they're envisioning it should happen. And this can be as easy as going to that agency's website and really becoming steeped in the way they're talking about a challenge or issue. It can also mean very carefully reading that notice of funding opportunity document, because a lot of the terms will be right in those documents. The more you become aware of how the agencies are talking about a particular opportunity or challenge, the more you'll begin to see opportunities out there in the field. So a job training program is often referred to as workforce development, not job training in the modern parlance. And so you're going to find more opportunities if you use workforce development. And as Val mentioned earlier, it's also true that there are different phases of work, and being realistic about where you are in your project is really key. It's also important to be opportunistic about thinking where you are in your project work, because depending on where you are and how you describe that, there are different funding opportunities available and different search terms that you might want to use. So if you were to do just even a basic example, a community center needing a paved multi-mile walking and bike path, or a community needing a paved multi-mile walking and bike path to connect a new area of economic development to a transportation center, might identify grants to plan the development of the walkway before implementing the actual construction. So one way to talk about the work we need done is, I need a community center built. Another way to think about the work that we need to have done is, if we were to build a community center, do we know how large it would need to be given the population trends in our community? Do we have special needs for that community center that might deal with the population, the unique population we have of seniors? Do we want to use that community center for different kinds of activities, or have it to be able to serve multiple uses? And if you're able to ask questions like that, then it implies you need to have a plan, and you need to be able to sit down with others and really have a planning phase. And so when you're looking for opportunities, you're not necessarily looking for construction, you're not necessarily looking for implementation. What you're looking for is, who can fund the opportunity for me to sit down with partners and stakeholders and have a real conversation about the future of this community and the kind of community center it needs. There are awards that are designed for precisely those kinds of approaches. So another example, if we were imagining a park, and this as a need comes up frequently, a public park that has fallen into disrepair and needs help. So in this scenario, a small city is seeking to refurbish a large community park. So what would that look like if we were to kind of employ some of the tips and tools that we've talked about? First, let's consider the project process and activities. The resources were needed not only for construction. We're not only talking about the actual act of refurbishing the park, but we're talking about park planning and design, which can be an extensive process. The partnership development. There may be many opportunities to partner with local organizations and businesses that would benefit from that park being in good repair. Engagement with the community. There's nothing worse than having a project actually get funded and implemented only to find that the community was not on board with that, or didn't get a chance to weigh in adequately into what that asset was going to look like when complete. So out of this kind of thinking, we get new search terms that could include community engagement, planning, partnership development, community facilities, a whole new range of words beyond just park repair. And then we want to consider the beneficiaries. This park will benefit many populations. In this case, a cursory look at the populations around and the assets and organizations around this park found that a VA hospital was located near this area. And so all of a sudden, there's a special population that is helped by having this park brought back to life. So now we're including search terms like veterans, military families, seniors, youth, family, underserved, and disadvantaged, because we're thinking about problems or issues that may be of particular concern to those thinking about a veterans population. And now we're pretty far away from just typing in park, refurbish, repair. Next slide. So when we think about the funder's own language, if we were able to determine that we have a special population that has a need for this park, we might then ask ourselves, well, what does that population need? What are the special challenges that confront that population? With veterans, we know there's need for behavioral and mental health. We know there's a need for transitional services from health back to work. And general community resources, and many others, workforce development, and many others. So now we've even expanded the terms to include other things because we're pulling in information that's about a particular population that we're looking to help. And then looking beyond the obvious buzzwords and considering other sectors, whenever we're talking about a park, we're talking about many different kinds of assets and functions. We're talking about transportation in the form of sidewalks and roadways that provide access to the park. We're talking about public safety, lighting, and safe sidewalks and travelways. We're talking about public health and exercise and opportunities for development for kids. We're talking about age-friendly assets that seniors can use to make use of that park. And we're talking about connectivity with the economy. Parks provide pathways to business. And we're talking about potentially hazard mitigation because, as we know, parks, asphalt, gray and green infrastructure can both be leveraged to control stormwater and lessen the risk of flood. So those are all potential buzzwords that we would be using if you came to me and said, I need to fix a park. This would be the journey I'd be taking to create many dozens of potential ways of thinking about funding that park. So I would take all of those words, and hopefully you would have been like jotting this down and kind of making an organized list of terms. And now it would be time to go into action and actually do the research step. So there are 4 or 5 great ways to get started with that. First, foremost, Wyoming Grants Connect Hub. It's a special utility for Wyoming, built for Wyoming, that actually has up-to-date opportunities that are geared toward Wyoming communities. And so it's the best place to start any search. And it can be found online just by searching for Wyoming Grants Connect Hub. Grants.gov is the federal resource, of course, for finding grants. It's a massive interface of all federal opportunities. So it's certainly a place that we go as well to look for current grants and loans and other kinds of opportunities of all sorts. Candid is a resource for foundations and private grants for nonprofits. Very useful in understanding that landscape. And then federal and state agency websites oftentimes are talking about their programs and funded projects in many ways. And so it's critical that you're reading what your agencies that you are close to and have an interested in understanding how they're talking about issues, but what also projects they're in the midst of conducting and what projects may be upcoming. In some cases, projects get talked about on state and federal agency websites before they actually even show up on grants.gov. General internet searches are also useful. One of the things I like to do with internet searching is search for people like me and what they're using as funding, what grants they may have received, because that also can be a back road into finding opportunities that are right for me as well. So the search strategies you can use, we've talked a lot about the relevant keywords and buzzwords, but also thinking about filtering by funding entities and funding types, just to make sure you're getting a broad, but also, connecting opportunities to the funding type so that when you're looking back at this information later, you have a sense of how you would frame that opportunity search. And then also eligibility criteria. We like to cast a wide net and not take ourselves out of the running just because an opportunity says it's only for a certain kind of institution or organization. You're a local government. Local governments are not eligible. It's still useful to know of that opportunity because perhaps this is a moment for partnership or working with some other institution that can be the lead. And you're not the lead, but you're still able to receive funding as a sub or partner. So here are the two basic engines. Wyoming Grants Connect Hub, again, findable online, and the grants and grants.gov. You can sign up for grants.gov funding or search notifications, and that's fantastic. So in your email, you can be receiving notices that relate to new opportunities that are opening up in areas you've identified as important to you. So definitely take advantage of that. Step 4. So how does all of this begin to culminate? We really encourage you to take a moment to create a list of opportunities. We call this the opportunity scan. It's the total of your work. If you've been out there, you've created these rich list of search terms, you've now gotten into these grant engines and you've found a bunch of opportunities, it's important to take a moment to write them down in an organized way so that you know what the opportunity is, who's offering, what it's called, who is it aimed at, how much funding is at stake, and when is it due. That information should live beyond just the moment you conducted the search. It should be something that your team can rally around and come to a common understanding around. It should be something that in a year from now you can look back at and see if there are new opportunities you want to add to it. It's also a useful way to track the opportunity, right? If maybe the opportunity isn't open now, but 6 months from now, you can expect that another round might be out. So this is how we see organizations really get proactive. They get on top of this, and they're not just sitting down and finding, oh, there's an opportunity, but unfortunately it's due in a few days. Hopefully now you're understanding there's a whole new slew of ways that you can think about what opportunities are out there, and then create for yourself an organized way of listing them and keeping them, but also tracking them. So we also have an assessment tool that allows you to answer the question, is this grant a good one for me to actually go after? Once you have that opportunity scan, you're not going to go after every single one of those opportunities. So by using this QR code, you can quickly find our grant fit assessment, which is just a way to understand, will this opportunity fit for me? Am I eligible? And will it actually service the need I'm hoping it will? Okay, so now we're going to take a second to get active and kind of put some of this into practice. We have a little bit of an activity. This is going to be brainstorming buzzwords. The presenters, myself and Val, will review a project description. Then, through an interactive activity, you're going to propose potential buzzwords that would be how you would search for this project description or for work like this. So we're going to give you a topic. You're going to come up with buzzwords you would use to conduct a grant search. And finally, Val is going to put that into action and actually use those terms that you provide to see what we can find in grants.gov and the Wyoming Grants Connect Hub. So we can imagine, and this is very relevant to the moment, that cultural attractions during the 250th anniversary of the United States are actually being funded right now by the federal government. There's a big interest in generating lots of hubbub and activity around the United States birth date. So to grow a project goal that aligns to that could be, how can we use this as an opportunity to grow our local economy? How can we create maybe a cultural event or a historical attraction that would really bring people into the community during the lead up to this 250th anniversary? Our target audience would be potentially visitors and residents, of course. But maybe also we're thinking about tourism. We're thinking about this is an opportunity to really execute a project that maybe could increase tourism. We were thinking maybe about partnering with small businesses or having an event that spurs people to actually go and find that there are businesses that they had not been using. And so there's an economic benefit, as well as cultural organizations and community partners we may already have, that this is an opportunity to help fund the work that they're already doing. And the activities that we could see very quickly that are potentially fundable include museum exhibits, historic or cultural event planning, signage and storytelling, American history education, and other things. So, with that, based on that scenario, what would be one or two or three buzzwords that you could type into the chat that could use to conduct grant research for this project? How would you find grants sitting down at grants.gov or Wyoming Grants Connect Hub for that as an activity? So go ahead and feel free to start just tapping those in. Great. We have Angela Parker telling us education. That's a great one, right? Because educational opportunities coincide with this as an event, but it may be that it works both ways, that if I'm someone who's interested in education or needing to educate the public, this is a chance for me to get funding for that mission, or vice versa. If I'm someone who has education as something that I do, this would be an opportunity for me to connect with those who maybe I was hoping to serve. Ooh, I see visitor attraction. Absolutely. Tourism. Yes. Economic growth. Those are great. Sometimes, or communities that really want to increase tourism, they use an event like this to just get the word out about all the other great many things there are to do in our community. Civic engagement, great. Youth activities, right? So your 250th anniversary event, depending on what it is, could be a youth activity, could be focused on a certain population. And then maybe there's other kinds of partnerships or other kinds of opportunities around funding because it's youth. Historical preservation, certainly. I hear there's a question mark there, but I would absolutely shake my head. That's a great search term, because if you're thinking about the 250th anniversary, maybe your event is about reminding everyone the role that Wyoming played in that 250 years of America, of the American story. And so what you're really wanting to do is make sure that you're drawing people to those assets you already have and tying them to the bigger story. Great. Veterans, sure. I could easily imagine an event that focuses on veterans. Livable communities, very good, very good. So all of you did a great job. All of these are great terms that you could use. And now I will pass it over to Val, who will take those words and others and do a live grant research demonstration.
Mhm. All right. Right. All right. Those were great terms. Those were great terms. So now we're going to use those terms real time into our two grant research databases that we have available to us today to show you. First is the one that the Grants Management Office hosts. And I wanted to show you where to find this one. We've talked about it a couple of times in this presentation, and it is in, you can find the Grants Connect Hub when you go to the Grants Management Office website, and then select on the Grants Connect Hub drop down there. And as you scroll down on this page, there's our Grants Connect Hub. Now for ease, there's a button at the bottom where it's going to open it into a new window. So it's nice and it's a little larger for you guys to see. And there you go. So we haven't really told you too much about this Grants Connect Hub, how it came to be, but this is the Grants Management Office decided to culminate all of the grant opportunities in the federal and state agencies that with state partners that we have that are relevant to Wyoming. So that's what is contained in here, both federal and state programs that are relevant to Wyoming. And just to get you familiar to the way this is set up, there is different views across the top. We're currently in the grant profile view. There is also application deadline view, which looks like a calendar. It shows when applications are closing. And there's a grant list view also that presents it kind of in a different way with the grants in a row instead of in the boxes. I'm going to return to the grant profile view because it's easy for me to show you lots at the same time. down the left-hand side of this page, there's where we enter our search terms. Those are our keywords. Those are the buzzwords that you just worked on. We're going to enter it there. We also have the ability to have some filters by eligible applicants. Are you a small business? Are you a nonprofit? Are you a local agency? Keyword tags, so that's by categories, say, climate, conservation, cybersecurity, what have you. And then the funding mechanism. Is it a grant? Is it a contract, a co-op agreement, what have you? It's in here also. So I think one of the terms that I saw come across is the 250th anniversary. Great start. Let's try it. So I'm going to use just 250 to start my search just to see. And what I notice is that I've got an energy infrastructure reinvestment, probably not pertinent to what I'm looking for, but ooh, look at here. I've got the celebrating the nation's 250th birthday with music from the U.S. military bands. Interesting. I've also got Celebrate America grant program. I've got some rural and municipal utility advance, maybe not relevant. And then I've got Wyoming semi-quincentennial grant program, a couple of those, and then another one, semi-quincentennial grant program. So this might be a pretty good search term. I could even refine my search maybe by adding 20th, and let's see what happens, because I can notice the way that this is coming up. That, ooh, this might be even a tighter search and provide me with some of the opportunities that are of interest. I'm particularly interested in, say, the Celebrate America grant program, so I can click on it. And the Grants Connect Hub provides the summary of the program, the status. This one is currently active, who the eligible applicants are, what your eligible uses are. And it also provides link to both the grants.gov and the agency's website for this grant opportunity. So very, very helpful. The other thing I'm noticing in this is that these funders not only just use 250th, but they also use the semi-quincentennial. So that may be another, as Harrison talked about in his part of the presentation, that you start to realize the language that the funders are using. It's like, I'm starting to see multiple funders use the same term. Maybe I should try that. So we can use that, semi-quincentennial. There we go. And there's the funding opportunities that come up related to that. I don't see any new ones there, but this is a term maybe I'd go and use on grants.gov then to check that out too. Okay, so that's our Grants Connect Hub. The other one we talked about is grants.gov. Grants.gov is the place where the federal government keeps all of the federal funding opportunities for a lot of federal agencies post their grants. Not all, but a lot of them post it on grants.gov. I am going to stop sharing for just a second because I'm going to log into my grants.gov account. It is not something that is required for you to log in. You can definitely use it not logged in. For sure. In fact, most of my searches, I don't log in for it, but because Harrison mentioned about being able to save your searches, it is a requirement that you are logged in. Obviously, just like any other search website that you have, if they need to know you, they need to have you logged in. So I am logged in now, and this is what it looks like. Oops. There we go. I'm going to go back even more. Sorry, I'm going to go back one more just to show you. So I'm logged in. This is what grants.gov looks like. If you want to do some searches, there's a search grant button you can click on, and it loads their search page. Much like the Grants Connect Hub, here's where our keywords go. There's our buzzwords where we're going to put them in there. They have the ability to determine if you want to look at forecasted. So that would be things that are coming out in the future. Posted are opportunities that are available now, and then closed or archived are ones that have already been closed. There's also have filters, much like the Grants Connect Hub has, by different kind of funding instruments. Eligibility, again, are you a city or town, county government? Different categories by like keywords, agriculture by different categories. And then you're also able to select certain agencies. So say I'm only interested in looking for funding from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, I can restrict my searches to the agency that I'm interested in. So, and then I should say, all of these rows, each of these rows is an opportunity. So if we use, I think I saw one of the keywords come across. I could use my 250th here, but I'm going to kind of just expand it just to show you something different on Grants Connect and the grants.gov. So I'm going to use, I think I saw museum come up because that was on our list of things, museum exhibits were something we were going to highlight. So if I do museum, ooh, I find all these really great museum grants for African American history and culture, museums empowered, national leadership grants for museums. Ooh, here's this Inspire grant for small museums. That might be good for a small rural museum getting ready for the 250th. And the other thing I'm noticing is, look at my funder is getting to be very consistent. IMLS seems to be the funder of choice for museums. So if I click on this, it brings up the page for that specific grant opportunity. And there's the name of the grant, and there's the Institute of Museum and Library Services. That's that IMLS. This may be a funder I'm interested in. And they provide some general information about it. So the award floor is the minimum amount that to request in your grant application. The award ceiling is the maximum amount that they allow. There's some information on eligibility, who's eligible, and then some additional information about the grant, including a description. And this one even provides a link to the funder's website. So the funder has a website dedicated to this that I would definitely check out to learn more about this. And particularly, as we talked about earlier, if there was past funding cycles, to see if I can see what the past, see some of the past who they have funded in the past and what have you to build my grant application. Also at the top of the page, these tabs across it, this related documents tab, this is where you'll find a copy of the actual notice of funding opportunity for this opportunity. So that's what you want to do there. And one thing else I wanted to show you is that grants.gov is slowly transitioning from this traditional view into a new view. And so I'm going to show you what the new view is, and they're calling it simpler.gov, simplergrants.gov. According to their website, they I think by 2027 they anticipate having all the functionality that's available in grants.gov to be in this simpler format. But it hasn't happened yet, but you can definitely still run searches in here, and it is more appealing to look at. So we can definitely use this one too. And it functions much the same through the search terms. So here's your search box. Their filter button, instead of having it along the left-hand side, it's a pop-up that comes up, but there's your same idea of forecasted, open, closed. Here's your eligibility. What entity type are you? What agency are you interested in searching for? If you have a specific agency you're interested in, it's all in there. And then coming down the page, there's they present each of the opportunities again in rows. So we're going to run our museum search in here for fun to see, just to show how this one pops up and what it looks like. So here's our Museums for America, Museums Empower. Ooh, there's that Inspire grants for museums again that I'm interested in, just shown slightly different way. If I click on that one, I'll just show you what it looks like on the simpler version, what the view looks like. There's the agency, the Institute of Museum and Library Services. It's got the closing date. You can go view this on grants.gov. It will return you back to grants.gov currently. There's a description, the eligibility is here. And actually this one provides a NOFO right on this summary page too, which is nice. So one thing that we like to do, one little tip I'll tell you, is that sometimes we don't just stay focused on what's open and forecasted. Like we said, we want to build that grant calendar. We want to learn those rhythms. And so sometimes what we always do actually is we go back to the closed opportunities, because we want to see what happened. What did I miss over the past year? We usually look back about a year. Let's see what we missed. And so if I do that for the closed activities, I can see things back to 24, 21, 24. But what I'm going to do is you have the ability to sort your results. And if I pick the furthest, I can see things that just closed, February 12th, 2026. In particular, this is this NEA grant. This is the National Endowment for Arts grant for arts project. Ooh, that might be of interest. I just missed it this round, but maybe let's see if it comes up, see if it's got some, it's an annual. It is. There's a 2026. There's another in 2026. There was 2 versions in 2026. That would be interesting. If that one's of interest and I missed it this time, maybe it's something I want to follow next time. So I'd be looking to the National Endowment for Arts potentially and this program as I build my grant calendar and get ready for it to come next year if it's still of interest to me. And the one thing I realized I didn't do, I'm going to flip back, I'm sorry, to the grants.gov. The reason I signed in is I want to show you how to save a grant search that Harrison mentioned. So if I type in my museum again and I do my search, when I am logged in, I have this ability to save my search because it knows who I am now. So I have the ability to save it. And if I save it, it comes up with a thing to add save search. You do have to name it. So I think I already have a museum 1, so I'm going to do a museum 2 for fun. I can add the criteria. I can determine the opportunity scans, all the opportunity status, all the same filters that I have on the search page, I have in here to create a search. And when I finish with that and I save it, it goes to show me my subscribes to save searches. And what Harrison mentioned in his presentation is when you do this, when you save your searches, you're now signed up that they will, grants.gov will email you when anything hits your search terms, your criteria that you have. So if there's new, I have for forecasted and current, if anything hits it falls within my search criteria, I get an email daily to tell me that there are opportunities that are available. So that's an easy way. Instead of having to constantly come back and do this, do searches, you can save it that way. And with that, I think we are done. And we're going to open up to Q&A.
That is fantastic information. Thank you, Harrison and Val. And that's one of the things we try to do is go through grants.gov and put it in the Connect Hub, the Grants Connect Hub, to make it easier for you, combing all those opportunities. And Harrison, when you were speaking, it did remind me to tell the audience, we also have a bi-weekly coordination meeting with our federal partners. It's every other Thursday. The next one is tomorrow. It's for 30 minutes. We have about a dozen of our federal partners that participate, but it's a great dialogue and they give us a heads up for funding opportunities that may be coming up that are of interest to Wyoming. So if you are not on that distribution list and would like to be, please get a hold of us and we're happy to put that on. So Abby, we have just a couple quick minutes for questions. What do you have for us?
Yeah, there is one that I saw Christine typed an answer to, but I think it'd be good to read to the entire group. Somebody asked if Candid is available through the grants office for free, and is it available at all libraries in Wyoming?
And Christine's answer?
Yeah, so and Abby, I'm sorry, thank you. I'll just jump in right here. So it's not available at all libraries. We did confirm that it is available at county libraries. And we can ensure that there is a designated person that's on staff in that county library system so that the day that you show up, you can get the help with the Candid system that you need.
Thank you, Christine. Abby, are there any other questions? We have maybe 1 minute before we wrap up.
Let's just do one more. So what if I search the Grants Connect Hub and grants.gov and don't find any relevant opportunities?
Who would like to field that? Harrison or Val? Val.
I'll jump in.
Okay.
So I think that's a experience we all have. But what we would hope is, and I think part of what we see is, 2 people can sit down at the same different terminals, and one person can come away feeling like there was no opportunity, and another can come away with a few opportunities. One way to get creative is to think about, is there a way I can braid opportunities together to fund a project? So if there's a project for which you're just not finding anything, is there a piece of that project that might be fundable, or might be the focus of a application? Because then you can potentially put things together. Also, we like to think about partnerships. Hopefully there are others who see value in the work that you just are seeking to, opportunities around, and, meeting and talking with them to understand the funding landscape, to see if there are opportunities there, is also a good step.
Wonderful. So I think that's all the time we have today. If you've got more questions, please feel free to email us at the Grants Management Office, and we'll be happy to provide information for you. So on behalf of the governor and our team, we sincerely appreciate your time today. I want to emphasize that our delegation, our governor, our federal partners, state agencies, and the Grants Management Office are all ready to assist and provide the resources you need to be successful. We are committed to supporting you. So let's continue to work together, invest in Wyoming, and promote stronger, more vibrant communities. Thank you all for joining us today, and we look forward to working with you on your projects in the future.